The AC/DC's Back in Black playing right now,
Hey, really?
just because we're back.
Oh,
Okay.
And then Phil started playing the drums.
That's right. Those guys, those old codgers.
Well,
So, go for it, Mike.
so before I get going, Evan, do you have a standing desk that you can adjust by pushing a button?
I do indeed.
I have one of those as well. I think it's Flexi Spot, I think is the name of the brand. And I I have been using it a little bit more, and I do find that it helps out a little bit during the day when I'm about ready to take a nap.
So, on this topic, real quick, both my stepmother and my father, they have had 3 knees replaced now between them, and also lots of back problems. And they're not very old. They're mid-late 60s, okay? And I'm convinced that the reason they have had all these ailments is because they spent so much time stressed out, hunched over a desk for decades.
Mm-hmm.
So my solution, in addition to sitting up and standing up and sitting back down, is to drink a lot and pee like every 45 minutes. So I'm just never sitting too long. And that's how I'm going to avoid. I don't care if I die. I just don't want to live through that kind of shit. Like, I don't want to have knee surgeries. I don't want that. If I go to the doctor and they say you need a new knee, I'm just going to be like, no, just take me out.
Yeah, I think pretty much everybody knows the desks are fucking everybody up.
Breaking our bodies.
That's why I'm very thankful that I have made life choices that never put me at a desk.
You're a lab rat.
Which is great. You're always getting up and doing shit.
Yeah, but you're breathing formaldehyde and all kinds of stuff. You're actually in the worst.
Chemistry lab? There ain't no fucking formaldehyde.
Whatever, man. You're breathing all kinds of.
Yeah,
So I see that we're recording again. So I'm hoping this will go in, even though we haven't done the intro. But I would like to hear what you guys have to say, which is, I'll let Mike do the intro, and then I'll say a topic related to the desk that I want to get into.
Okay, Mike, do the intro.
Okay, Mike's Movie Podcast featuring Evan Special Guest Adam, go ahead.
We're talking about desks here, but Evan's in professor mode. We're talking about desks. We're talking about how sitting at a desk messes up your joints and is just grinding us all into useless puddles of like the Family Guy where he wishes he had no bones.
Right.
I was going to say that, what do you guys think? Like I'm speaking specifically in the ecosystem I'm a part of, which is a hospital. And in the hospital, because we had a time when I worked there where we got hacked and the computer system was down, ever since that happened, seeing what it was like during that time versus after that time, because the hospital never closed. We did everything we usually do, and they just didn't take appointments that weren't necessary. And ever since then, I'm like, if your job at a hospital disappears without computers and the hospital keeps going, you got a fake job. And beyond that, I kind of think if you do your job sitting at a computer, that's also a fake job. Discuss.
Oh, sorry, man. That was too fast.
Well, so do you mind if I jump in, Evan?
Yeah.
So I just want to say, because I think I'm hearing kind of 2 parallel tracks here.
There's the micro and the macro.
Yeah. So one is that if your job, like, if your job can be replaced, if everything goes offline and the hospital's functioning without you, it's like, well, why are you even here? You have a fake job. That's part one. And then part 2 is that, like, if your job's entirely at a computer, then that is also a fake job. And okay, so the first portion of this one is that, like, to extrapolate, if they're okay, you know, I'm gonna stop right there. So that's kind of the way I understand it. Evan, I'll pass it to you.
Well, my job is a remote DEI officer, and so I think that is the epitome of a non-fake job.
Wait, why?
That was an ironic statement.
Yeah.
Most jobs are fake, dude.
That's what I'm saying. And the thing is, here's what really got to me is when that happened at the hospital. You would go in the parking garage, and like it's hugely contentious. Most of the parking's offsite. And then, like, you'd be like, how are there this many? Like, I get that, like, for billing and some other administrative stuff, it does functionally help or make things more efficient to have people at computer jobs. But to see how many people, I was like, all these motherfuckers don't do shit that doesn't affect patient care. Like, these don't, get them all fucking out of here.
So I would wager that if you extrapolated your observation from the hospital ecosystem to the university ecosystem where I work, the percentage of waste would be higher in my
Oh, yeah.
ecosystem.
I mean, because in my world, at this point, I kind of think the whole academic because here's what I think. I think bureaucracy is a parasitic cancer, and academic stuff is like completely there's no original cell. There's no functional cells in the academic ecosystem.
So, right. And I'll be the first to agree with you, especially in the areas of teaching, that are more sort of like teaching and scholarship oriented. So the reason why I think institutions like mine will persevere is because they are critical to the innovation ecosystems in ways that I think are overlooked by the general populace. So not a majority, but a significant portion of global research happens in places like this that produces drugs, technologies, things like that.
Because I'm also anti-technology, progress is a myth, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway,
this is the kind of thing where you say stuff like that, but like you've thrived and lived a life that is based on the steady progression.
I'm a cockroach living in a landfill. And what am I gonna not live in the landfill? I'm a cockroach. Of course I'm thriving in the landfill.
But you are a progress-oriented being. You like progress. You just like to articulate this false.
I nibble at the benefits, but in general,
okay. I do believe it or not, I actually have I think a segue into the red shoes here.
Oh, I mean, I do too. I do too.
Okay, well, I have my notes, and again, we're going to do the tradition.
I even took notes.
Okay, so what you were saying, okay, I just want to kind of set this up before I get into my point from my notes, because this is an actual note that I'm going to read verbatim when I get there, is that Adam, you were saying progress is a myth. Evan, you are saying, hold on a second, Adam, like all that you're doing is, just kind of riding the wave of the technological progress that we're having. So the note that I had here, the bullet point was extreme excitement about the ballet, because at the beginning of the red shoes, it's like people are like waiting outside just to get into the balcony to see the ballet, which of course here in the year 2024, it's like you don't think about young people being that excited about the ballet. So on the subject of like technology, how that changes entertainment, the question that I had, and to set this up here, as Adam, obviously very interested in movies, I think, as we all know. The question is, what would Adam be into in 1948? Which of course is the year that came out. So if this was in 1948, what would you be doing? Because I mean, movies existed back then, but like not quite in the same quantity that is afforded by the technological advances. So that is the question, though: is what would you be into in 1948?
So the thing is, I thought you were going to go pre-movies. Like, what would I be into in like the 1880s or something? Because that's kind of harder. Because like movies, because like even if you go back to 1948, in terms of what I as a movie person would be doing, it stays the same until like home video in the 80s. Like you could just as easily say 50s or 60s, you still had to go to a theater to see movies back then. And I don't even know how different it was in terms of how many theaters they were, how many different movies showed 40s versus 50s versus 60s versus 70s. But for sure, in terms of what venue or what technology is available to distribute movies, it's just theaters until home video, which is like 80s, mid 80s functionally, if you're not rich.
So, I mean, now, two questions, like one follow-up then. So like 1940s, would you just be like, saving up every nickel that you had to go to the theater?
There was the Nickelodeon. It was that cheap. That nickel would be one fucking movie. Yeah. And I was gonna say, like, we could get into it more later, but like, I'm a big Busby Berkeley guy, and that's prime time Busby Berkeley time. I'd be out there, just gaily enjoying the most flamboyant musicals of the era. But that's my favorite era of musicals, is Busby Berkeley 1940s shit.
Yeah. Now
I can
before,
say like 1930s, 1940s.
okay, so like you'd be so what about like what like Gilbert and Sullivan and like Rogers and Hammerstein now?
That's my low interest. Then I don't get back interested again until it's like Phantom of the Paradise or like the fucking Walter Hill one, like kind of like post meta ones where they're not really trying to do traditional Hollywood musical stuff.
But then there's one last question here, like going like before like movies, I can't help but think about like the Mr. Show, you know, Dickie Crickets versus Kid Jersey. Would
Yeah,
that
no,
be
I love that. That is the kind of music I love. Then when we first started saying it, I said jazz. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, or the something in my front pocket for you is the South Park equivalent of that kind of old timey white people jazz music.
Yeah,
The Shining.
Cornball.
I've been thinking about this myself because I would say if you go back like before movies, I mean I think there would still be sports for me to be in, you know, as well. So you would have you know, baseball back in like the late 1800s as displayed in the movie The Ridiculous Six, when you know, baseball gets invented there. But again, and like in the 1700s, like when you get like before organized sports and whatnot, you know, what would my interest be?
Everybody just worked and did chores, and that was it.
Yeah. Which I, you know,
That's how it's supposed to be.
yeah. And wait, what'd you say?
I said that's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to have work, and then you go home for chores, and then you sleep, and maybe you have one beer.
Yeah, and the thing too is that, you know, the older I get, like that doesn't sound like a bad way to live.
Well, I bring it up all the time. The Unabomber thing about human minds not being meant to cope with free time.
Yeah.
But anyway, my thing that it was going to be related to about like, because to me, the big picture thing of the movie is she's kind of like, what's more important, my human relationships or like my passion for my art or whatever? And I was going to bring up, it's just funny to me, like the three of us, like, you know, like none of us are expressing ourselves artistically, unless you count this, which is more criticism than artistic expression. But just like there's two parts in the movie where Evan did a better job remembering the like boss director guy's name, where he's like, what do you want from life? Like, I was like, pose that to us as a group.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask everybody what's your red shoes?
My last note was a remake I was thinking of called The Red Guitar.
Yes, thank you for answering for me. And you know, also this movie, I have lots of notes, but like, so it made me want to rewatch Black Swan, which is essentially a remake of this movie. You know, I see Adam is disagreeing with me, but
it's related. I wouldn't say it's a remake.
It's the same exact concept. Same exact concept. And I think that I would be interested to hear.
Fall in love with Black Swan. I haven't seen Black Swan since it came out.
It isn't about the falling in love. It's about being possessed by the passion and drive to be like a sort of a pure vessel for your craft.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is Red Shoes is the big thing is the choice, and you're saying Black Swan doesn't have the choice. No, that's what drives me crazy in Red Shoes.
The Red Shoes is a Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale where there's no love interest. It's just about the red shoes dancing you to death. And it's about choosing this passion obsession versus whatever normal, comfy life is, which in the case of the Victoria Page is this relationship with the dumbass composer or whatever. But it could be something else, right? It could be sitting on your butt watching movies. The idea is that you have a calling, a purpose, and the movie gets at like, you know, there's this particular brand of artist or performer. And I think ballet is like an easy example of this because of the culture of obsession, right? But you could look into like professional sports or whatever. And you take this kind of like obsessive savant type of approach or lifestyle versus being just another, you know, mediocre human being who does stuff like get into relationships. That's the part, I mean, that's the thing that really resonates most.
Oh, good. We're at the anti-relationship Evan here. I'm excited for this.
We can't have a episode where we don't get into this, but Anyway, I'll leave it there. That's how I enjoy it. In that sense, the Black Swan is the Red Shoes. It's the same thing, right? It's about her kind of like departure into madness or obsession with the dance, and it kills her, just like it does in this movie.
That is true. You are right in that respect. And it is, like you said, I don't know shit about the Hans Christian Andersen. I don't know if you actually did or if you just read Wikipedia, but like, if the fact that like the relationship isn't a part of the original does make sense, because it does feel a little shoehorned in this. Like it feels like I can kind of feel that they added that, but like in the end, that's like specifically what pushes her over the edge is the two people being like, and she's like,
right. Which I think that's my favorite scene. If we do the favorites, like the where the two men are sort of like playing tug of war with her, and the stuff that the Lermontov guy says is just like I love every bit of it. It makes
and I'll
me.
tell you what, I also love that scene, and I didn't know how it was going to end. I was like, I can't tell, because it kind of seems like we're supposed to have not liked the director, but then it seems very clear that we're supposed to think it's bogus what's going on with her and the composer. So I really was like, I don't know what's going to happen here. And then when it ends, I was like, oh, well, I guess they did make movies like this back then.
Well, with that, and I want to get a bit of a vibe check here for Craster. You know, when he comes down to Paris and whatnot, is I thought at the end he came across as needy. I wouldn't quite say codependent, but like whatever half of codependence is what. Yeah, what do you say?
Well, I mean,
to me, Craster represents weakness, and Lermontov represents strength of will. And you're being asked to decide, and this is essentially the same question that the Matrix poses with the red blue pill. The red shoes really are the red pill, right?
Whoa, okay.
Do you want to follow your true calling and be what the universe meant you to be? Or do you want to have this nice, cushy, cozy, romancy, cupcakey type of existence? And Lermontov is holding the red pill out. So this is the truth. And this other guy is just another blue pill, weak baby. This is an extreme overinterpretation, but this is my.
The funny thing is that like the Red Shoes is very much about like art, and in the Matrix, it's like we're all fucking dying here. Do you want to like drag yourself out of the muck? But I understand the connection you're making.
It's a little, you know, like I said, it's a reach. This is what you pay me for, right? I come onto the show and I do these big picture, right? Ambitious ideas. That's what I'm all about.
While we're talking about the big ideas, what do you guys think about the idea of having a calling? Do you think I will tell you right now, I don't think I have a calling. And like I feel like it kind of just immediately gets to be a fate thing, which I also like. I'm happy for people that experience it, but I certainly don't.
Well, so on the idea of a calling is an idea of the fate thing. So I'll do my best to, because I'm actually kind of thinking this through here. Never really articulated this before until like right now, or never even thought about it. And again, this is just the wonder of this podcast that we have, where it just like brings out ideas and feelings and thoughts that we never realized that we even had. But on the whole thing of like what you're saying, Adam, is like having like the fate thing of like the destiny thing. Like you're destined to be a great musician. You're destined to do this. You're destined to do that one. Where just thinking about, and I don't know if I actually believe this, but I'll just say it to help think it through, is that this idea that there's an element of like randomness to it. Is that like randomness, and that like you as an individual happened to be born with certain physical skills, certain mental pathways that make you like very, very good at like playing a piano or whatnot. Like there's a certain like cold, objective randomness to it. And then with that genetic, with that natural ability, you then have a choice as to what you want to do with it. But I feel like there is this idea of like, no, you have this, you have this innate ability, so that it's your destiny, it's your fate. You have to do it. When I don't know, I feel like it's like we all have our natural abilities, but I don't think there's any sort of like fate or destiny, and you can do whatever you want. So I don't know. That's kind of an undeveloped idea there, but I don't know.
I think we're too quick to identify. I love the question. So thanks, Adam. I think we're too
You're
quick.
welcome.
I think we're too quick to think of a calling as something very narrow and specific, like dancing. And I think for most people it's broader than that, right? So like
I wasn't saying it was dancing. I'm asking if you what you what if you
I'm not saying you said it. This is, I think people
so
in
you're
general,
rebutting things no one said.
this isn't a rebuttal. I'm responding to your question. This is the classic, like, hyper combative, it's like if you and I had our own podcast, one of us would die within like a few weeks. Just
We
like,
would have episodes every week is what would happen.
it would be intense. It would be intense. No, I'm actually not trying to rebut what you said. I'm addressing the question. And I guess what I'm saying is that I'm not directly answering your question of whether or not there is such a thing as a calling. But I'm saying that we do have natural orientations that come out, right? Like, so when you write your fucking movie reviews on Letterboxd, right? There's something essential about you coming out in that. And we all have that. We all have that. I think I would just, whether you think it exists or not, I would challenge people to think more broadly, because I think it's I think it's dangerous and stupid to try to assign people a calling as like, oh, well, I'm a writer or I'm a runner, or, most people don't have that. Anyway, that's all.
What I want to know is if you guys feel you have one, and if so, however you would describe it in whatever abstract way.
Yeah. Well, I'd say like the way that I'm thinking about this is that I guess we can like look at things like broadly in terms, like just like broadly maybe simplify things in terms of skills. And we'll say like, like writing skills or musical skills or, comedy skills or like sports skills, whatever you have, athletic skills. And there is like nothing that I possess, which I think is like truly exceptional. And just like, this is something that is really going to like have like a meaningful change within this particular field or this particular area. So like, for example, like Michael Jordan, like he was kind of maybe the most clear example. Or like maybe even something like Angus Young and Malcolm Young, to be entirely honest, where they have a certain musical genius that created a formula for songs that people love. And I don't think that I have anything that like rises to that level. So like, I wouldn't say that I necessarily have a calling for that one. And there's like another thought, that a follow-up thought that I have on that, which I need to articulate. But like I don't, I mean, which is not to say that I'm like bad at things or like I don't have any skills or talent, but I don't think that I have anything that like truly like it elevates to the level of like, like I'm, Will Hunting, where it's like, oh, you got this gift, kid, you're throwing it away. I mean, there's nothing like that. So.
Could it be?
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I feel like the movie is supposed to like ignite a passion in you to pursue your own calling. And I was left me thinking like, well, if I even like tried to psych myself into it, what would I psych myself into thinking it would be? And I don't even really know.
Yeah.
Has that always been true? Like, I mean, would you say the same thing as a 15-year-old? I'm curious.
Probably. I think by 15. Yeah. I think honestly, a critical turning point was as a movie guy, I used to think like, I want to be like a writer or a director. But the more I learned about the realities of that and how, the reality, whether or not altruism is a thing, et cetera, and just that, like, what I distinctly remember acquiring an awareness of how much everything I did was pastiche of things I liked, and being like, not really that, and how much everybody does that, and being like, I don't need more people just combining things they like into a slightly different third thing. If I ever have an idea that I feel like, wow, this needs to be out there, maybe I would, but I'm not even like looking for ideas like that.
Mike, what about you?
No, I think that, and Adam, I think I'll tie this back into your answer here in a second, but 15 years old, 20 years old, even at 25 years old, I think I would have given a different answer of like, I'm going to be a sports writer. I'm going to do this. And so I think that I would have had that calling and had that idea of like, find your passion, follow your passion. And now I've kind of changed that, where I kind of have more of like a Cal Newport type idea of like, true satisfaction comes from competency and like doing things that like you are able to be effective at. I'm probably misrepresenting his idea a little bit, but kind of the idea of like, hey, if I'm passionate about sports writing, but I'm actually really good at being an HR administrator, like my true satisfaction is going to be becoming in that particular field. But I'm getting a little bit off topic. To the original question, though, I think I would have said 15, 20, 25 years old, have a calling, and by golly, you should follow your calling. I've changed my opinion on that since then. And Adam, to your point about the creation part of things is, being like, oh, I should be a sports writer, I should follow sports. What I've realized is that like the true joy that I get from sports is in like consuming sports and like watching them and like having conversations about them and going on threads and like email threads, internet threads, and talking about them, and not so much like with the minutia of like, well, the Wisconsin Badgers are playing in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, so you got to fly there and then watch the game, and then the game ends, and 2 hours later you need to have your 650-word summary done, and then you got to go and talk to the coach on Monday morning at 7 a.m. for an interview. Like that type of stuff does not have the same appeal as like, I'm going to get some wings and some Coke and watch the game, and then afterwards, I'm going to do whatever. So,
this is blue pill. You both traded in your red pill for a blue pill. I did too, and that's why I asked the question, right? So, like, and I knew you both had an answer earlier on in life. Like, I think that's what to me, this is like the heart of the story. Mm-hmm. Is like, we all have our red shoes, and most people take them off, right? And
I'm continue.
Well, I would say, I mean, look, I'm not saying that there's like it's wrong or right.
Yeah.
But we take them off. Most people take them off because of, well, fear. It's like, yeah, I had my story similar to yours, Adam, where like I had a passion similar to the level you described with movies and being an auteur. And when I got wind of the fact that that so many other people were doing it, and that there was really I could not see any new territory that needed to be covered, I felt kind of almost embarrassed. And there was a fear of like, I'm really gonna like devote a significant chunk of my energy to this thing that literally like a billion other dudes are doing. And I can relate to that, but there is something that like does reignite. I don't know. Like, I think there's a benefit in remembering that you have that inside you. And
I mean, I agree with you. And here's the thing that I think there isn't really a ballet version of that I think is relevant, because I think everybody should play music or do art or whatever thing that you were passionate about. I think there's no reason to not do it just because you're not an innovator that needs to be known in a public sphere. I think the whole step that like is like, you should just do it because you like doing it. Like Mike is saying, you don't need to like express it to the world at large. You don't need to like make it something you make money with. You should just do it because you like doing it. And I don't think like giving up on the idea of being like the premiere, whatever, like the director guy in the red shoes or the dancer in the red shoes is like, yeah, sure. You're not going to be that, but like, doesn't mean you don't do it. You can still enjoy it for the sake of doing it. And I think a movie like this, because I think if you look at the big picture, I think way too many people are just dead set on expressing themselves artistically in ways that are like completely pointless and redundant. Like there's so many people out there that are like, I'm going to show me to the world. And like Evan's saying, you're like, yeah, what you're showing to the world is what everyone else is completely pointless and redundant. Like I feel like there needs to be less people doing it in a public for money way. Everyone should do it, but I don't think you need to be like, I'm going to be the star. I'm going to go take over the world. I'm going to go on tour. Like because the thing is like, so many people we know who I won't name end up basically digitally panhandling because no one gives a fuck about your art. You should do
it. One of them right now because he's in the movie, which is Nick Turco, who the little choreographer man. Every time I saw him, he was like my favorite character in the movie. I was like, oh, that's Turco. But who did what you're talking about. And I 100% agree. And I think that's the most toxic part. And that's why Lermontov the impresario, I think, is the devil. Like he represents Satan in its truest form. And we all have to contend with this. But this impulsive like need to say, look at me, this is me, I'm expressing me, that is hell, right? To me. And that's the downside of following your passion, right? Is like, because in your pursuit of this like holy grail, you overlook the fact that, like what Mike's saying, you're really just another bozo on the bus. And a good life is about doing things you're good at competently and enjoying your life. That's
and the and yeah, and on the point, just to kind of jump back here a bit, is that Evan, you mentioned I'm sticking with the red pill and the blue pill analogy here. For us, we've all been blue pilled, I guess, or we've taken the blue pill voluntarily and of sound mind. Is that there is a certain element of comfort at play. I just want to add that point, is that like when again, using my sports analogy of like sitting at my apartment or like at a friend's house watching sports, I mean that is a lot more comfortable than the alternative. What I wanted to kind of add though too to this is like kind of the idea of like balance, because I think that whether it's like sports writing or music or like filmmaking or whatnot, it's like I think a thing that can like still exist in balance in your life, and like, but maybe, you know, instead of like devoting your entire life to doing it, you devote, you know, 4 hours a week to doing it over a sustained period of time. So I think that there are ways of doing multiple things, but like, I don't know.
It's just that's the thing. It's like I think, and maybe this is a little bit truer for me than the two of you. I don't mean to diagnose, but like I am easily seduced by ideas like this, because there's something just infinitely attractive about being extreme, special.
What idea are you talking about? Are you talking about what we're saying or what the movie is presenting? Which idea? Yeah.
You know, and I'm aware of that. I'm also like my rational side agrees with the two of you. Like that's, you know, that's a pitfall. That's a booby trap.
So I still want to know, when you're getting swept up in Lermontov, what are you thinking you should be doing?
That's the funny thing. I don't even know. You know what image comes to mind? Have you guys seen the Christopher Guest movie, Waiting for Guffman?
Of course.
Okay, so there's a scene where Eugene Levy, they're interviewing him after the play, and he's had this transformation from a normal average Joe doing community theater to like this guy who's just convinced, and he's like, I have to perform. I could always relate to that, because that's the little ego inside me. Like, you got to be on stage. You got to be talking to lots of people. And there's nothing specific about it, right? Like I mean, I definitely used to feel it with guitar when I was younger, but then of course I explained to you like how I had that awakening to the fact that like, yeah, you're in the 90th percentile. Do you really want to be like in the top 10% of the billion people who play guitar? And I perhaps childishly kind of resigned. But there's still some, you know, I can attach it to anything is the answer, right? Like, I mean, maybe it's some kind of, maybe it's teaching, maybe it's being you know, somebody. It's very embarrassing. Like I said, I'm willing to put my balls on the table and share that, because I think that's the way to not be consumed by it. But some kind of performative career.
Hey, here we are on the public stage. Technically, this is performing for everyone on Earth with an internet connection.
Well, and I do really fantasize about what would it be like to make it.
I would hate that. Nothing would end the show quicker than anyone that doesn't know us personally watching this or responding to this ever.
I'm aware of that, and that's, you know, that's fine.
And so just to jump around real quick, is that something I've always done and I enjoy doing and I will continue to do probably forever, is when I watch a movie, is and you know, realistically there's a chance of there being a Roger Ebert review. I will, you know, read the Roger Ebert review to see what he has to say. And I want to mention, you talked about Lermontov being the devil, and in Roger Ebert's review of the movie, he said that his notion was that Lermontov was Mephistopheles, which I believe is, you know, as well. So I think that your notion there is, you know, one of the greats agrees with that notion too.
validation from the great critic.
Yeah. The
Thank you.
But I don't know. I thought too. Just I'll say one last point on the idea of like having podcasts and being popular and all of that stuff is that so over the last like year or so, I've just picked up on like how like being an online content creator, talk about red shoes. Like you have to like constantly be like pumping stuff out like every single day. It's like if you miss a day of content, it's like, all right, you're forgotten. What's going on? There's nothing you can do. And yeah, so it's I think that sounds like where's the joy in that too? And it's like, you take your red pill, you put on your red shoes, and like I feel like the joy that you bring in like these cases like pretty ephemeral. People go to a ballet, they enjoy it, and then they like go home and they go on with their lives. It's not like
it's like Freddie Mercury said, what do you do in the in-between moments, right?
Yeah. So this gives me an idea though. I was like, I don't know if anybody's had this idea, but like a clown, but the clown is sad.
That fits with your
I can't even imagine it.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, think about that though, like because you think of clowns as happy, right? But like they're sad.
Well, in the theater, there's the happy face and the frowny face theater faces. So, there's always got to be the other one. And they both have goofy ass faces.
Yeah.
They're kind of both clowns in the theater iconography.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say, a more traditional topic to discuss that I thought about a lot in this is, there's this kind of a baseline level of classical music appreciation that like I feel like I have, and it's pretty common to have. Even opera, I've been to the opera. I've had a good time at the opera. There really is something about ballet as a medium that to this day, I have a baseline juvenile, pejorative, abstractive sense of it being gay. Like I remember before I had any conception of sexuality in any form, seeing ballet dancers and being like, what the fuck is this? And there's just something about like the specific way that like classical ballet, like the kinds of motions they get into, like you see it in the red shoes and you're like, wow, look at this, it's beautiful or whatever. But there really just is something I fundamentally don't get about ballet that I don't have with even opera, which is pretty fucking close. Because opera, like, it's not necessarily for me, but I like get the bombastic, bigness of it. Whereas like all the little like kicky pointy toe stuff, I'm like, why it's got to be in the pointy toes? Like, and tutus, I'm like, how does that look good to anybody? That just looks so stupid to me. And every time they do it, and they seem to love it. All ballets, they're on tippy toes, wearing tutus, and I'm like, I just can't engage with the way that is beautiful, basically. And I want to hear what you guys have to say about that.
Well, but before getting into that, so that like the 17-minute, like red shoes ballet sequence, like what was your like feeling and experience like watching that?
I mean, I was like, this is really cool because it's like Fantasia or something where it's not even like it's thus far been pretty rooted in the reality of what a theatrical production is like, and then they just kind of like unexpectedly push through with all these special effects and stuff to make it heightened on another level, which to me is the movie magic I get swept up in, and that is because of all the production stuff and all the effects and things. You're like, wow, this really is pretty crazy and like very memorable. And I've seen like images from over the years. It's one of the reasons I want to see the movie is you see people take just like individual frames from that, and you're like, wow, this movie gets pretty freaking crazy.
I want to get to your original question. Oh, actually, I have a follow up to that one. But Evan, I'll go to you on Adam's question. I'll let you go first there. About your feeling of ballet.
Well, so I share your feeling, Adam, and I can't fully address this without mentioning my mom, for whom ballet was the red shoes. And I'll be honest, I almost texted you guys that I wasn't going to do this one because it hit too close to home. And this movie was like a favorite of my mom's. And I was actually texting with my aunt, her younger sister, to confirm this. And I won't say too much more about that because in a certain way, it's like a metaphor for her life. And I am a lot like my mom, so I couldn't help but feel close to it. But to the ballet question, there was a particular, I 100% as a young kid in particular, I could not understand how this was supposed to be entertaining. And of course, it was my mom's passion. And she always wanted, like, you know, a girl, a daughter, so that she could share that, like, you know. And she, of course, she didn't. She got unlucky. She had three boys, and two of them were little assholes. And she would take Nick and I to the ballet, pleading with us, you know, just please don't do what you do. And I will, you know, we'll go to McDonald's after. And, you know, I remember there was one performance of the Nutcracker in particular where Nick and I really shit the bed and we were just bad. And we were watching the ballet, and of course, yeah, it's gay, it's stupid, whatever. And we're like, you know, 8 and 6. And they had one of the guys dressed up so that his pants accentuated what you might call his pud or his fupa. And Nicholas and I found that so damn hilarious, and we just couldn't stop laughing. And my poor mom had to take us out of the theater. So that's a long-winded answer to your question. It was like, yeah, I agree. I've never, now as an older person, I'm curious about it because mostly because of movies like this and The Black Swan. Like, I wish I could cultivate an appreciation of it, but.
But do you know what I mean? Where like when you're 8 or whatever, it's all the same. Like opera, classical music, you're like whatever. But then as I get older, I'm like I now understand, and even when I love it, I can engage with it and appreciate what they're going for. Where even now, I look at ballet and I'm like I fundamentally like don't get it. It looks like a joke that's being perpetrated on me that anyone thinks is good.
But there's something we're missing because it was a.
I know, obviously, for sure.
I was actually full confession before earlier this morning when I was finishing watching the movie and like goofing around, just doing whatever. I was like, I wonder what the best. I want to go to the best ballet. I want the best. And so I was looking up like who's the best companies, right? Like what's the modern day equivalent of Lermontov? It turns out it's like the internet thinks it's the American Ballet Company or the Royal, which is the English version. The American Ballet Company is doing Swan Lake, you know, the kind of like archetypal ballet in Washington, D.C. in February on a week when I have to be in Washington, D.C. So I'm like, perfect. I'm going to go to this fucking ballet. It's at the John F. Kennedy Center. And I looked up tickets. And so I'm going to probably go. They're only
How much tickets? I'm very curious.
$69. It's only $69. I was like, this is going to cost like $500.
I mean, like Mike was saying, it's not like back in the Red Shoes era when people are lined up for 6 hours to see the ballet.
Now people pay hundreds and thousands of dollars to go see the modern day ballet, which I would argue is professionals with NBA, NFL. It is. It is. We can talk about that. Could be a whole other podcast. And NBA to me is the sports equivalent of ballet. Look what they're doing.
I mean, and I will say, I also, as a not sports person, I look at a sports game and I'm like, I understand it. I understand why this is so engaging and the beauty of it in a way where there's just something about the tiptoes and the kicky feet and pirouettes and plies. Because another thing is like, I actually am a big dance person. Most forms of dance I appreciate in some degree. And one of the few things that Instagram's algorithm has successfully monitored my own interest in and served up to me are like modern dance choreographers and dancers that do cool stuff that I like. And the thing that I hate is all professional dancers go through ballet training, and even people doing the most like avant-garde, weird poppin' locking stuff always throw in some pirouettes and plies. And I'm like, get that out of there. We're beyond that. I'm watching you because you're doing something novel that I enjoy. You don't need to do the spin and the little pointy toes kicky feet. And like, God forbid, they put on a tutu. I just don't get it.
It's very European too, right? Like it strikes me as a kind of like that's the classical dance art form, you know. Seems to overlook a lot of other style. I don't know. It strikes me that we're both kind of ignorant, right? There's probably a lot.
Ballet, absolutely. But what I'm saying is like, it's not like I'm an anti-dance guy.
No, I know. I hear you.
But it's specifically ballet. I'm just like, and it's the biggest, oldest, and I'm like, I just don't. But like folk, I'll see videos of like folk dancing from like Latvia, and I'm like, wow, I get why this is. I can see the appeal of this. And I'm like, why? I don't know why. I just can't even, because the stuff I like in the red shoes is all the ornamentation and the Baroque window. It's not really the dance. When they're doing the dancing, all the costumes are crazy, but like,
Adam, you are a person, you and I probably both are overly masculine in a certain sense, in that we're not able to appreciate, like aesthetically, that doesn't do it for us. And I think that has something to do with our being gendered in a certain way.
I believe it, but I'm saying there's plenty of very gay forms of dance that I do like, you know? It's just, I think it's the classicalism more than the gayness that I like have a root objection to, you know?
Yeah.
Like frilly stuff.
Maybe this is not the best analogy here, but like, are there any like singers that have a voice that like you respect their voice, but it just like when it hits your ear, you're like, I just can't listen to this music?
I mean, yeah. I'm trying to think of a good one.
But yeah. And while you're thinking of that, because I wonder if like ballet is the kind of the same way where like, or like maybe there are like directors or movies that just like have a certain like, you know, color palette to them or whatnot, where you look at that and you're like, this is just like hard on my eyes in a way that I just don't like. So I just wonder if there's kind of a similar thing with ballet as a form, where there's just a certain characteristic to it where it just like just does not agree with the old brain, you know.
Yeah, there are. I just can't think.
I don't know.
Okay, so we've talked about how ballet is gay.
Yeah.
That's important.
What the movie did make, I do in the red shoes, I do enjoy it. But like I said, it's not the actual dance part. It's the way the movie presents it, I am able to engage with. And the funny thing is thinking about like the classicalism being kind of like fussy and feeling antiquated. Another thing I like about this movie that I am very able to engage with is just how the fussy Britishness of everyone's manner of speech and dialogue. Like one of my first notes is just the way British people in this era will say, really? Like putting the heart emphasis on the start of really. And like there's a point where someone even like makes coincidental, like two words, someone says like coincidental, and I'm like, you guys have to like say everything, but in that way, I do kind of like get a satisfaction from like a very fussy mannered British speech stuff, which this movie is just chock full of.
Yeah, at the very beginning of the movie, I can't remember the exact dialogue, but when Craster, and there's a guy that was sitting to the left of him, and he was also being a bit fussy, and I can't remember exactly what he said, but it did leave the note, which was the pretentious guy was David Cross from Mr. Show, which was the precursor to Kid Jersey versus Dickie Crickets. So there was.
Oh yeah. Speaking of the first part, the way they say amateur, I just can't bear amateurs.
So what do you think? So I was like randomly flicking through some YouTubes. I wanted to listen to something in the car that had people talking about this movie because I was just interested in it. And the first thing that randomly came up was this woman doing kind of like a piece on how it influenced a bunch of horror movies, particularly things like The Black Swan, but then also like Dario Argento stuff, which I
love that pronunciation. Don't ever change it. I mean, yeah, Suspiria is another dance movie where I'm like, dance? What are we doing here?
Yeah, well, I was hoping
you guys into Dario Argento?
Dario made a movie again.
Dario Argento.
I don't care, man. This ain't my bag. That's why I'm serving that up to you, or Mike, who also knows something about movies. Yeah, Darren. What is it, Dario? I don't fucking know. Suspiria.
Just try to imagine an Italian stereotype saying it. That's the right way to say it. Dario Argento.
So how exactly do you agree that this movie influenced those types of films later on? And if so, how did they do that?
Yeah, I think that like specifically what you were saying, I think earlier on about like how this movie is very much about like the obsessive fixation and like the ritual of it Like Suspiria is basically like, what if they do this because it's like not about the art and it's for like some other, you know, occult ritual purpose? Because like it doesn't really make sense to be like this fucking focused on these weird like, you know, geometric performance things, which does like I do feel the pull of that logic. And you know, Suspiria, but yeah, Suspiria is the one that comes to mind.
So
I mean, the Suspiria, I'm sure it influenced a lot of people just in like the iconography of it in the cinema, you know, just like baseline filmmaker stuff. But like besides Suspiria, which is the obvious one, I don't have like other immediate examples. Because like, you know, like Stage Fright, the whatever that guy's name movie, which also is like a theatrical whatever, is not really in any way I can think of offhand connected to the Red Shoes. But
well, so we're thinking about like the connection from like the Red Shoes. So we have again the Red Shoes. Somebody is obsessed with dancing, or you know, being in ballet, and then the obsession ends up killing them. So you kind of have that form, and then you have like the second part of it, which is that they are obsession, and then there is like a mechanism or an object, which is what ultimately causes their death there, or you know, their demise, however you want to pull it. And the reason why I'm drawing that distinction is because I am thinking about something like The Vanishing, the original version, where you know the man is like so obsessed with the death or the disappearance of his, I can't remember if it's his girlfriend or if his wife, that he ends up dying. But there are also, I don't recall in The Vanishing there being any sort of like, you know, mechanism in there that like, you know, like the titular Red Shoes. So I guess that is the thing I'm thinking about. I guess I can think about other ideas like where obsession leads to somebody's demise, but obsession and there being some sort of object too. I know that there's other things out there, but nothing that's immediately coming to me.
Yeah. I just like the idea of being obsessed. I wish I was more.
very appealing.
Yeah, it is.
I think honestly, I feel like that it's the same thing where addiction is basically a form of obsession. And best case scenario, you get yourself obsessed with like a non-physiologically addicting thing. And I'm like, you're good to go. You made it. If you're obsessed with a thing that isn't physiologically addictive, you're good. You're living a normal, healthy life.
Yeah. Well, you know, I want to get into kind of like, you know, personal talk here for a second as well, because I feel like something that I just like kind of struggle with on a day-to-day basis is that like I don't really have anything at the moment that like I'm obsessed with. And I do think about like times when it's like whether I was like really had like some sports obsession or whatnot, and like how much clarity that adds to your day-to-day. It's like it kind of like gives you a sense of like purpose and like a sense of identity and a sense of clarity of like, you know, of things, you know. So like, so like, you know, football, like, you know, Packers have a big game coming up, and you know, if they win or lose, I'll have a reaction to it, but it's not the same as it would have been like 20 years ago. And you know, if they, you know, 20 years ago, if they lose the game, then I'm like celebrating it, and I'm just like obsessed with that for the rest of the day. If they lose, I'm depressed and I'm obsessed with that for the rest of the day. But now it's like whatever happens, like an hour later, I'll be moving on to the next thing, and I kind of miss the simplicity and the clarity that kind of came with that obsession there.
I mean, I of course am being semi-sarcastic because I think normal people don't have this. I think you are entering the world of like a more healthy mental state of mind if you don't have a thing that's gripping you like that. Although I hear what you're saying, and I feel it as a gift to me that my obsessions span beyond the horizon of my life that I'll never be able to get to. And there's very little evidence I will ever lose interest in them. But I don't think that that's like good or right, or like I am kind of performatively exaggerating that that's because like people I work with that are normal people, they don't have that. They're just kind of like living normal lives that aren't fixated on arbitrary topics.
You're bringing something up I think is very important. There's a spectrum of like red shoe-ness, of obsessiveness. All three of us on this screen can somewhat identify with this lead character. I think a lot of people just can't at all.
I don't know. I think that's the reason it's a very famous movie, is because people relate to it.
Well, they relate to it in that they can romanticize the idea. But like, so Adam, okay, let me just lay out some empirical facts. Okay, right. So I've had a lot of experience with obsession and addiction, right? We all know that. Mike, you have a level of passion, or at least I know you're saying it was more in your earlier life, but I mean, you still do. Like the point you made about it helps you focus and orient your life. I mean, like that's a really good point. I would say from what it looks like from the outside to me, that the anchor in your life is still that sports stuff.
Mhm.
And for
We scheduled the podcast around it.
Adam, how many movies do you watch a day?
I will tell you right now, I was sorely disappointed that according to my letterbox, I did not break 200 last year.
Yeah, and you have a
Break
binder
200.
full of movie stubs that you've gone to see. So
Yep.
I would say way more than the average bear. We on this call are more
That's
red
what I'm
shirt,
saying. Yes, absolutely.
which is cool. I mean, like I like that. I
I'm
don't.
disagreeing that it's cool, but I appreciate the
I mean,
sentiment.
it's a curse, but at the same time, like I don't know that we would be such good friends if we didn't all have that. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
we're
and
not.
it is notable that there's almost no overlap in what our things we're obsessed with, and somehow we're still discussing movies on YouTube.
That's very well, Mike and I. Well, this goes back to the sacred origins of the podcast, where Mike and I originally devised this as a way to keep in touch by watching with the dumbest, fucking worst, stupid movies we could find. And then we at some point ventured into like, let's talk about real movies in the 70s. And hey, Adam's a real movie guy. He's our friend. He
No,
actually
I fought my way on here. You didn't seek me on here. I demanded it.
we
But I
picked
will also say it's funny that Mike, I don't know if this was on the recorded part, that Mike was saying he recently watched a bunch of classic 70s movies. That like now that Mike of his own volition is choosing to enjoy some 70s movies, that I'm coming in like, guys, we're watching fucking 40s movies now.
Yeah,
Oh, you guys like the 70s? Now we're gonna watch some 40s movies.
Wait, Mike, was that text serious? I interpreted that as a joke that you didn't really watch 70s movies.
You
No,
talked about it.
I did in fact watch the 70s movies.
Okay, all right. Yeah, good man, good man. Well, from now on, we're only watching movies that were made after World War II, but before 1950.
Well,
So,
I want to just jump around just to go to the 70s and just to kind of reference our 70s podcast. And I will say, like, again, the three 70s movies that I watched, I would say they all were depressing in their own ways. And there is, I think that I do have an appreciation for them. And I would say, as a movie watcher, I enjoyed those three movies. I think of the three that I watched, I think The Conversation is the one that I enjoyed the most. But they all were like fairly depressing. Also, The French Connection is one that I watched like I think probably like 6 or 7 months ago as well. And that was, I mean, they all those movies do have that like kind of just morose overtone to them, which is a contrast to kind of like the more, like shiny, peppy 90s movies that we all grew up
And
with.
it's kind of crazy because Red Shoes has a 70s ending. I think in 1940 whatever, I think that shocking kind of downer ending was atypical in a way that would become normative in the 70s.
Yeah, no, that was, I mean, spoiler alert, but I mean, there was kind of an ending like that, one of the subplots in Saturday Night Fever. So yes, I think that is very much true.
who suggested the red shoes? I was like, you did, Adam.
Is this one of these things where we're going to go back to the text thread and like nobody actually suggested it's not even in there?
And Evan said he'd been thinking about it, and I was like, "Oh, that's great." I thought you guys were going to be resistant to it, but as soon as Evan said he'd been thinking about it, I was like, "Okay, we're in business, baby."
I knew what it was because I knew my mom. I had a feeling and I had to double check with my aunt. But it was like, this is the one my mom really liked, and I had been, I've been curious about it for years, and I never sat down and watched it. So I was like, all right, yeah, well, let's do it.
Because to me, this is a throwback to the series you guys did right before I joined.
Sure.
Of Benny.
But I would say totally different from those kinds of movies, right?
Absolutely. But like in that it is a iconic classic we've known about forever, and I've been like, I guess I'll watch that someday. And I'm like, you know what? Why not now? Why not today?
I'm just gonna say this, and I know, whatever, it's just like trite to even say, but like I wish we didn't have to wait so long to do these. I wish we didn't have to go. It was 4 months ago we did Baby's Day Out, and that was the last time we got together.
I'm available most weekends. And I'm ready. I am now, my appetite is whetted. I want to do more Powell Pressburger, sweeping impressionistic epics.
Why do they
from
call
Cuba.
themselves the Archers?
I don't know.
Burger.
No.
That's a deep movie. We need somebody who's even more obsessive about movies than you to answer that.
I'm sure it's in the top paragraph of the Wikipedia that I'm not looking up right now.
I refuse to read any Wikipedia about the
I don't
movie.
need to read. I only want a motion picture.
That's right.
And sound. I will say, a thing I did look up that happens in the movie that maybe you guys know. At the start, when he's getting a drink and he doesn't want to see someone dance, and he orders a champagne cocktail, I was like, what the fuck is a champagne? Did you guys know what that was? I had to look it up. It sounds disgusting.
So no, but you know what that made me think of was this famous Richard Pryor stand-up piece that my brothers used to replay a lot, where it's an old ass drink that nobody orders anymore, but he was making a joke about how, he goes to the club with his old lady and orders some shit that's not on the menu, like turtle soup and a champagne cocktail, and it made me laugh.
And he specifically says champagne cocktail.
Yeah. That's a Richard Pryor. Yeah. And the joke, and that was in the 70s, right? Like Richard Pryor in the 70s made the joke that that's a stupid thing to order because it's all old and nobody has it anymore.
So do you guys know, because I did look it up, what's in it? So you got champagne, of course, cognac, bitters, and a sugar cube. Yeah. Which reminds me, later in the movie, when he makes her have lunch while the composer's playing piano, she's having like a brunch, and she has what appears to be juice, and she appears to put her into juice.
That's a French thing. They do weird shit in Europe with their drinks, and I don't like it, right?
I was like, I guess this soda makes more sense now. If people were putting a sugar cube in their champagne cognac and sugar in their juice.
I just got to say too, another one of my notes, like I'm always very entertained and drawn to characters like Lermontov, who do classically misogynistic, dominant, like dom sub type of stuff. And every single one of the scenes with him was just so beautiful in that respect. Like, you'll do this, and blah, blah, blah. And the final scene was like the culmination of all that, where he's just like laying it down, like, you'll never dance again if you don't stay with me. And, and he calls her sort of like instinct to go off with this new love, like childish or adolescent. He's just like, such an adolescent, silly thing. Why would you do that? Why would you go have a romantic relationship? And it just, I mean, I really do harbor thoughts like that. When I'm lecturing to my students who are like 21, 22, and they all have their little cupcake boyfriends and they're going to go get married and then divorce, I'm just like, you guys are fucking idiots. Please listen to me. The first thing I say to them on day one of the class, regardless of what the class is about, is I'm talking to them about numbers, about empirical evidence for things, right? And like using evidence to make rational decisions. And we talk about marriage. Like, look at the stats. Look at the percentage. What's the percentage? And they all know. They're like, yeah, we know, but it's like, but you're going to do it anyway. You're going to go do that. They should instead put on their red shoes.
So here's a question I have. Do we think Lermontov is an incel? Do we think he's gay, closeted? Has he ever had a relationship and it went, how did that go?
I'm going to, this thought is not my thought. I'm just going to literally be parroting. Well, I will parrot Roger Ebert, but then I will add my notes here that I wrote before I read his review. But Roger Ebert's like, I don't know, like Roger, even Roger himself was unclear as to the character, and I do think that what makes him a compelling character. And just getting back to my notes though on this, is what did catch me a bit by surprise was when Page goes with Craster and Lermontov was totally shocked and stunned by that one, because like that takes kind of like the form of like a love triangle. And I'm like, wait a second, like there was no indication clear indication that I got that he was, in love with Page. And then it kind of makes a little bit more sense later on why he was so upset. But to your question though, Adam, is that like I kind of perceive him more as like asexual. Is like kind of I don't. Now at the same time, it's like when they cut to Craster and Page, like they're also sleeping in twin beds. So It's like, I don't know if
That's
that was
just because it's the 40s
That's
movie.
just the 40s. I
Yeah.
loved that scene. I was like, oh, look at that, twin beds. That actually looks awesome. I wish that were the fucking norm. I wish that were what nowadays it's like, oh, you're a couple. You probably want to be on top of each other all night. So we'll give you one small bed. That's now the norm. It used to be like, no, we realize you're going to sweat and you want your own space. You can fuck and then go to the separate bed. Why did they understand that in the 40s?
They didn't understand that. It was like a censorship thing.
Yeah.
No, it was just a norm. It was just a culture.
That was not, in my understanding, I did not live in the 40s. My understanding from, texts of some kind of academic nature, I don't have my references handy, is that was invented for the purposes of film and television, that there was not representative that people actually did the two beds thing as a married couple.
Interesting. Okay. I thought people just did the two beds thing. I thought that was like,
no, I think that was how puritanical censorship was, that you couldn't even show them get in a bed together.
Because there's some other racy, sexy stuff in the movie. Like you get some pretty good shots of the ballerinas' butts and stuff like that I felt like were competitive with
maybe that's why ballet doesn't make sense to us, is because we have real pornography and we don't need to sublimate our pornographic urges to a true form of art such as ballet.
So I forgot. No, I had something important to say in response to Mike. Oh, about Lermontov's sexuality. He's above it. He's the devil. That's the thing. Like
he's above it.
He transcends the dichotomy. And I think he is supposed to be kind of gay, actually. But that doesn't mean
I'm separate from your approach to being about sexuality. Like, do you think that character has ever had a sexual relationship in his life?
To me, I think about the Black Swan guy. So there's the equivalent of him in the movie Black Swan, where the point of the character is that he's supposed to be dominant, extremely attractive to women, but also kind of gay. And that's a norm. That's a common trope. That's a common thing, especially for more of these like devil, satanic, archangel type of guys. I don't like the idea that we have to call him one or another, right? I mean, he's probably.
I'm just trying to imagine young Lermontov and what it was like when he was discovering his own thing.
Lermontov. Okay, I'm gonna say this one thing. I'm gonna shut up. Lermontov, if I had to envision a prequel character, would never limit himself to one sex.
But he seems pretty disinterested in this movie, and I'm just curious if he was ever interested or if he's always been like.
He's reached that higher plane where it's like the sex.
Was it a journey? Did he go through that, or did he skip it?
I think Lermontov probably had sex with like thousands of men and women, and finally realized, you know what, it's really about the single-minded pursuit. And this is the last note I had. Going back to our old friend Captain Ahab. It's the same thing, right? It's the single-minded pursuit of the life's purpose, the life's mission, the life's calling. That transcends all else. That is the most spiritually high plane that you can reach. That is the highest spiritual conquest, and everything else should be sublimated. Everything else should be put on the back seat. Relationships, sex, money, all that is blue pill, soft, worldly shit. And your job is to reach this pinnacle by chasing the red shoes or the whale that ultimately doesn't exist, and that's what makes him the devil, posing as God. That's my interpretation.
I know, I believe you, but I'm like, again, that makes me back to be like, so when you think that when you're watching it, what do you think what are you sublimating it all for?
I told you, it's performance. I'm Eugene Levy. I have to perform. I have to do something.
Just blanket performance.
It could be anything.
I want to add, so, and Evan, like, I don't have anything to add to what you said, because that actually kind of you articulated any thoughts that I would have on that matter quite well. And I just want to add, there is a line of dialogue which I think is relative to this from earlier in the movie, about 15 minutes in, when they're at the bar, and I can't remember exactly I think it was Paige saying this to Lermontov. Why do you want to live? And Lermontov says, I must. So.
And he says, why do you want to dance?
Yeah.
I must.
But then he brings it back later, because he says that was I believe he refers to that as a trite answer when he brings it back later.
Well, what is life?
Yeah. Can I so go ahead, Evan.
Continue, Evan, please tell us.
What is life? This is a quote from one of the from the other podcasts I'm stealing. What is life but a macabre invitation to dance? And I think we'll just close the chapter on that.
What? No, I'm not done.
I'm kidding. I'm just being.
Another thing that I thought about a lot, and it's a small thing in the movie, is the first time Craster is permitted to meet with him. And he's like, yeah, play me some of your shit or whatever. And he starts playing the piano, but he's like having his breakfast in it. And in the world of the movie, that's supposed to be insulting, that you would listen to music while eating. And I'm like, that's every form of expression these days. No one is paying single-handed attention to anything these days. The idea that it would be unbelievable to like eat while listening to music, you're like, well, how dare you? And like, that's how no one does any like absorption of media that isn't doing some other thing at this point in time. You can't get people to turn their phones off at the movie theater.
No, yeah, that's bad. I would say that's not good. We should have
that is true, and I think that we have crossed the Rubicon of like single attention being very, very rare in those situations.
But yeah, it's just funny to imagine like that's supposed like it's almost you have to think about the movie has to clue you in that that's supposed to be insulting because it's like, oh yeah, sure, you're eating, you have some piano, seems nice or whatever. But the movie lets you know that like that's supposed to be like a fuck you to him, like you don't matter. But I'm like, but that's also like everything. Like any music venue sells alcohol and probably food, Like the idea that like, how dare you have food and drink during the performance.
That's how they support the damn art. That's
well,
all.
Yeah, I mean,
you couldn't go to a movie theater if they didn't have concessions. They can't afford.
I know, and that's also wrong. That's also wrong and bad.
I will confess that that insulting part I did not pick up on that when I was watching the movie.
I gotta go to the bathroom. Speaking of not being able to focus, I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, I will then use this opportunity to bring up some of my notes here that are a little bit of a non notes to go through here. There was a scene in the movie when they see now I have these notes here, but like I would feel bad if I didn't share the notes in Evan's company. So we're
I know that I don't think Evan would really have any specific care about is it was really cracking me up that when they're doing the montage of them being on tour, everybody's luggage is wicker. You know what I'm talking about? I was like, wicker luggage? The fuck was going on? That seems like a horrible idea. And that they just like wheat paste the different city, like just the name of the city goes on the piece of wicker and they on the train and they're like, oh, Cairo, close enough, throw it off the train.
Yeah. Simpler times. I was here. This is a topic that I had that Evan can join in midstream. This is not really related to the movie, but one of the first notes that I had was me being back on the physical media train. This is totally off topic here. I did stream this one on Amazon Prime, but like with the way that movies like are coming and going from streaming services, the way they're like being edited and changed and whatnot, I've been positively influenced by Scarecrow Video here on the importance of like physical media and like if you like something, if you really truly love it, like get a physical copy of it. So
that's why I have the Severin 4K of Spider Labyrinth. What I was going to say, when talking about editing it, since you mentioned that you watched French Connection, did you stream that? Because that's a famous they changed things for streaming movie.
I did see that, and I'm actually unaware of what was changed.
I forget basically I forget the exact line, but they basically cut out a line where Popeye says some racial slurs. Mm-hmm. Even though the point of the scene is he's being an asshole, they were like, well, we don't want to have him say it. And without Friedkin's involvement, whatever streaming service just was like, yeah, we're just going to take that out. We don't need people hearing those words.
Yeah.
Even when a bad man is saying them.
Yeah. That's interesting because like Saturday Night Fever had plenty of slurs all throughout it as well. So I forget
the details of which one and what the exact line was, but it was something like that from French Connection. I've never streamed it, so Wilbur, you gotta go.
I will I will have to look that up, but that is a reason to get the physical media. So Evan, so here's something I did want to talk about as well is I don't know if this is actually going to make a connection here, but this movie that we're talking about has conductors, and I just wanted to just say that we watched a movie called Tar before.
Yeah.
Had a conductor, and I was like looking through it, and I was like in my mind, I'm like trying to make a connection between those two, and I feel like there's a surface level one as well, but I don't know if there's any other meaningful parallel to be drawn between uh, Tar and the Red Shoes. And the reason why I'm just compelled to bring it up is because whenever there is an opportunity to talk about multiple movies that we've discussed in this podcast, I want to.
To remind people the breadth of the library they should be revisiting in the archives.
Well,
here on
we
YouTube.
talk about that too, because we got to migrate this shit. Because like all of this has been sitting on my personal YouTube for way too long. But that's something that we'll discuss later. I think the general theme, Mike, goes back to Moby Dick, right? So it's like this. We have this sort of section of work that focuses on the single-minded, obsessive pursuit of a professional goal leading to the demise of the main character. And that is what happened in Tar, if I'm not mistaken.
That's true.
And it was what happened to Captain Ahab in Moby Dick.
That's how it always goes in these. And you were just saying that you think that's like what people should be doing is following these pursuits and pursuing to their own self-destruction.
No, I'm leaving the question open. I'm just saying, I think that's the devil's game. That's the devil's game but that's also part of our passion. That's what makes you, and this is why I said, I don't want to get too deep into it. Like, it's like a metaphor for my mom's life, right? Like there's this part of us, you can follow it if you want. That is this like incredibly passionate, obsessive, like lust for life type of goal. And there's this other part where it's like, oh, let's just be comfortable and do the most sort of expected, conventional, comfortable things that are low risk and you have lots of control, right? To me, the Red Shoes represents this other, more exciting way of life that I think we all have to integrate these two things. I don't think the answer is one or the other. I think you integrate the red and the blue pill. I think that's what the Matrix is saying too.
No, I think that is a valid point. I don't think that's the point the Matrix is making.
Okay, well, I haven't seen the Matrix in a long time, but the Matrix is a science fiction, right? I mean, it's like, I think
I don't know. Can we look that up? Is that science fiction or
if I'm not mistaken, The Matrix is a science fiction film. We can debate about that another time. I don't think the point of the Matrix is to convince you that we live in the Matrix. I think it's just that that idea has relevance and you have to integrate that into your consciousness if you want to be more, aware. That's all I'm saying. Same with the Red Shoes.
I mean, the whole red pill, blue pill thing is that you have to choose. They're not, what part do you think they're then hedging it back to having a little bit of both?
Listen, sometimes I don't fit all the pieces together perfectly. Sometimes you got to jam them in there, but it's fine.
I think what you're saying makes sense. I just don't think it's what the Matrix is saying.
Yeah, I think there is I think that there is a facet of it with like red pill, blue pill, where like a facet of the blue pill is the comfort, and the red pill is going to be the more challenging, uncomfortable one, which is why Joey Pants is like, this steak is delicious.
The red pill, blue pill thing doesn't fit perfectly onto this, right? If I could go back and redo, I would revise my, but that's what we're off the cuff here. This is live, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a perfect analogy.
Yeah, no, we're going to use AI to
correct this.
Yeah, to correct everything.
That's what I want to mention.
That we haven't gone over is I really enjoyed when they're having their romantic horse carriage moonlight ride, and I forget the full context, but he's like trying to be like flattering to her, and he like sarcastically refers to her as comparatively unspoiled. And I was like, man, that would be a great one to bust out on a nice young lady. Like, madam, it's such a delight to spend time with a comparatively unspoiled specimen.
Let me ask
I want to add,
is your hymen intact, my love? Oh no, madam, we'll find out soon enough.
Yes.
Specifically the comparatively part, not to be like,
on my notes here, I
There
don't
we
know if you can see it. Comparatively unspoiled, though, is one of my notes here as well.
Now, that hard ballet work has been known to bust a hymen, though. I'll tell you that. You know, I made a pact with myself that I was going to be on my best behavior because I think my aunt is going to listen to this one, and so now she's going to hear me talking about busting hymens. But that's all right.
I think we've already crossed some lines that earlier in the episode, but hey, it's not my aunt.
Hey, man, she's cool. She knows.
There was one note I wanted to make sure to get into as well, which is that there is a scene later in the movie where Paige and Lermontov are on a train, and one of the attendants on the train is like, "You have 3 minutes before the train leaves." And I was timing that scene, and that was quite good in real time. Where after about 90 seconds, they're like, "Hey, you really gotta go." So I thought, talking about verisimilitude, they nailed it in that scene.
That's great. Do you often time things in movies? Is that something you're in the habit of doing?
In timing things now, this is going into the creative process here as well, because like with movies, I think I've brought this up in previous podcasts. I have like watching YouTube videos for the last like 3 or 4 years. My mind is so conditioned to be like watching stuff in like 10 to 15 minute chunks that anything that is like longer than that, I am like rebuilding my stamina. So I had my watch here, and I was timing it. So I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna like focus on going 30 minutes here. It's like similar to like you're building up stamina to run a half marathon, and you're like, okay, I need to run for 5 minutes, then I'll walk for 1 minute. So that was kind of part of it as well. But also, I just enjoy timing things. So there were multiple reasons why, but that's the explanation for it. And as long as we're talking about it, was part of like the movie time of like, this bomb's going to explode in 10 seconds unless we do something, and it takes like 90 seconds for them to defuse it. So I'm always alert of that. So anyway, that was mine.
Go ahead.
Well, I have some other notes that are more tangential. So
That's what we've been doing. When you got up to go to the bathroom, me and Mike were doing our more tangential notes. So this is the segment of the show we're at for sure.
And also, I need to use the restroom as well. So I'm going.
Let's both go. I also have to go, and then Evan can get pissed off.
You're gonna make me riff? No, I'm not gonna do that. We're just gonna pause. We're gonna pause. How do I pause the recording? Maybe we'll just play some music. I wasn't expecting to be put on the spot, but c'est la vie. Let's see here. Saturday Night Live, cue it up. Okay. Okay, there we go.
Guys, Marcy, Sergio. So we just came through the middle.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Are we still recording? Hello?
Oh, yeah, well, we're still recording. I was trying to find some music, but you're back now. So one of the things I wanted to mention was that this is related to the AI thing that came up about how you can doctor people's speech.
Yeah.
Are you aware that there's a big kerfuffle about the effects of AI on the porn industry? There was this big article.
Sure. Absolutely.
There's a big article about this in the New York Times about how I think it was the New York Times, might have been the New Yorker, one of those dumb liberal papers, about how AI was removing the need for consent. So there's some porn stars who are suing the producers because they have used AI to have them do and say things that they didn't agree to do. Very Some either very red pill, blue pill, you know what I'm saying? Very kind of,
My glass is half full take on all of it is I think that like I don't really think it's the kind of thing you can just be like, okay, guys, this is bad. Just no one, can we all agree no one use it anymore? I don't think that's happening. So then my positivist spin is like that we can all just by default assume all digital images are fake and no one ever trusts anything they see on a computer ever again. And you have to see it in person to be sure that it's real. And I think that'll be fun.
That is an interesting idea.
I
I don't know what the end game is besides that, honestly. I think we're already kind of there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was on the subject of AI, as I have some hot salsa and some blue corn chips. Is that I see like some fake AI. So what was it? There was something on Twitter the other day, or X, I should say, where it was the song "Zombie" by the Cranberries, but like sung in the AI voice of Homer Simpson, and it sounded like it sounded like Homer Simpson singing that song, and like other stuff where you'll be watching like a video that's coming along and it's like AI, Obama, Trump, and Biden, and they're talking about like the best Black Sabbath albums. But it's like you listen to it and you're like, okay, you listen to it, it's like, okay, well, this isn't really their voices, but it's like it's close enough where like if you're not really paying attention, you're like, this is their voices. So the AI that we have for like audio and video, it's like it's not perfect, but I think it's close enough where it's like, oh, this is kind of grainy footage that we had, and like it's really difficult to discern. So I think that we're like at least halfway there to having the conditions set where like can't really believe what you see. Now I think we're a longer way to actually go, but like we're getting there.
The good thing is once we're there, then you can do whatever you want and no one can ever prove you actually did it.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you kill all the immediate witnesses, any documentation will be, potentially fictitious.
Well, what was it? Again, this is like a Reddit thing that I saw where like people like when they're like committing crimes, will like have like a sixth finger on their hand, and they'll wear that and they'll be like, oh no, see, like this is an AI glitch. So yeah, it's a challenging time.
Evan, did you have other notes before I say any other not specifically movie related stuff?
I have other non-movie notes. I'm done with the movie. I think we covered.
Okay. So my first question, tangential to the movie, how would you guys feel about watching at least one more Powell and Pressburger movie? I'm ready to do multiple, but like I'm curious if you would be open, now perhaps not immediately, but sometime in our next season of the show.
Yeah, I'm personally.
And if so, do you have an opinion on which?
Yeah, I know. I would be interested in doing it. I don't know what other movies there are, so I'd have to.
The big ones that the big ones that people talk about. I love the title, "The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp." I know that's one of their big ones, but then really the prime time ones people talk about the most are the ones immediately preceding this: "A Matter of Life and Death," "Black Narcissus." And then to a lesser degree, their other dance one, Tales of Hoffman, which was a little later. Those are like the four on my docket.
I made a note in my movie notes that I wanted to watch the Black Narcissus after this.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I'm open to any of those.
Mike, you cool with Black Narcissus? AKA.
Yeah, I can get behind that. And well, this is making me think of a little bit here. I'll give the setup here. I when it comes to like goals, I think we've all heard of like the STAR method, specific, time bound, attainable, and relevant. I think here in 2024 that, especially thinking about the attainable part about it, and, and the relevant, I think realistic part of it, I think our goal should be one podcast per month. Do we have the capability to do more? I think we do, but let's be realistic here. I think I think like one per month should be the goal to get some consistency here is what I would say. And what Black Narcissus would be that sounds like a good option to me.
Yeah, that sounds good. I certainly haven't seen any movies myself lately that I think are in need of a podcast. Like I said, I watched Ferrari and The Killer, both of which I found enjoyable, but just kind of like a B, whatever. I do
Did
think
either of you guys see Poor Things, which I think is over discussed, we need a podcast about, but I hope you both see it.
I'm gonna go see that next. It's on my queue. Now here's a question for the group. So as you know, I like to go to the Alamo Draft House and get a burger. Now there is an option for people like me to pay $19.99. They had this in the past, and they took it away, but now they've brought back the unlimited movies for $20 a month thing. Do you think I should do that for
That's
$19.99?
a crazy deal. I don't even like the Alamo Draft House, but I would do it if I lived near one.
I don't live that near. That's the hardest part. It's like it's a 40-minute drive.
Well, you know what I mean. I don't live in the same state as one.
Right.
Even because like any movie theater I go to is 45 minutes minimum. So I would still absolutely do that.
$20 for now. You only get to go to one a day, which is fine with me. I'm not about to see two movies in a
Yeah,
row.
no, I almost never do two in a theater in a day, except if I'm like in New York or something.
Okay.
Which reminds me, I want to shout out on the podcast for any hypothetical listeners that we don't know personally. For the hypothetical person that is a fan of this podcast but doesn't know us, I'm going to be in New York City going to some screenings. If you want to meet me and have me sign autographs, I'm going to be at the Saturday, February 3rd MoMA screening of Choi Hart's Dangerous Encounters of the First Kind, which is a big deal to me. And then later that night, I'm going to be at Salo at Lincoln Center. So if you want to come out and meet me at Dangerous Encounters First Time, Saturday matinee, or Salo later that night, Lincoln Center. You know,
Go ahead. Put it down in the comments.
I'll put the link in
I
the show
also
notes.
want shouting people out. I just want to shout out the choreographers and dancers that I like on Instagram, and then I want to tag them in the post and see if any of them watch it. I want to shout out Zoï Tatopoulos, the choreographer. I want to shout out Kaycee Rice and Hailey Paolillo, the dancer she works with. I want to shout out Marie-Louise Hertog and Kellie Kessling. And yeah, you know, this is about the beauty of dance. And I hope you ladies check out the Red Shoes if you haven't already, and listen to more podcast.
Yes, well, and you can catch me at the Washington, D.C. American Ballet performance of Swan.
Yeah, there's so many options.
February 23rd. It's a Friday night, 7:30. I'll be there, and I still need a date. So please.
This is great. We should have this every episode. Mike, where can people meet you to sign autographs?
Yeah, so next Friday night, I am going to be in Dallas, Texas, giving a speech about quantitative easing and also the potential benefits of devaluing our currency as a means of assuaging our national debt burden. So you can be there and check that out.
Yeah, which venue are you gonna be at, Mike?
I'm going to be at the Forum in downtown.
Oh, really? Which one?
The Parthenon.
You know, it's just the Forum. You know, it's right down the street from Eddie's.
Yeah. Is that by the Starbucks?
Oh yeah, by the Starbucks. I think there's also a CVS nearby too.
Oh wow, okay, you can't miss that. So the Forum by the Starbucks and the CVS in Dallas.
Yeah, you know what's funny, Evan, is that this is so. First of all, I found myself just the YouTube algorithm fed me a video about like the national debt and whatnot, which I was watching, which is where I got the currency devaluation idea from. But